so much for your patience as we're waiting for some guests to yet arrive, and we were doing a whole search for our seniors. As all of us know, sometimes seniors get lost in their travels, and we wanted to make sure that we had them all here this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, this is one of the proudest moments in my 4 years here at Fredericktown Local Schools. It is an honor to welcome everyone to the first ever Distinguished Alumni Hall of Honor ceremony. The ceremony is a result of a lot of hard work by many people, 5 of which served on a committee that advertised, accepted applications, and selected today's candidates. And I would like to recognize the members of that committee. And so when I call your name, please stand. All 5 of these individuals are graduates of Fredericktown Local Schools. Mr. Earl Bechtel, Mrs. Betty Weller, Mr. Jeff Lever could not be here with us this morning, Miss Joni Rhodes, and there she is, and Chris Love. Thank you so much. This is the Alumni Committee. Folks, I would also like to recognize our Board of Education, for without their support and their assistance, none of this would be possible. We've got 3 board members with us this morning. We've got Board President Jim Blanchard, member of our Board of Education, Betty Weller, member of our Board of Education, Jim Wagner. We'd also like to express the district's appreciation to First Knox National Bank for sponsoring this event. And we've got 2 members from the bank today, and they are Mark Blanchard and Raymond Rule. Please stand and be recognized. Folks, again, I want to thank all of you for attending this morning to help us honor and recognize the accomplishments of these graduates. And these individuals have truly changed the world through their efforts, their talents, their expertise, and their desire. I would also like to acknowledge the members of our senior class, because in reality, this program is designed for you. We wanted you to see what you can do after you graduate. We want you to be challenged by those that went before you. And we want you to know that great things can happen for those individuals that have gone through Fredericktown Local Schools. You know, the world awaits all of you. And I hope one day soon, that I see this year's members of this year's graduating class standing on this stage. At this time, folks, it is my pleasure to introduce to you our President of the Board of Education, Mr. Jim Blanchard.
Good morning. I'd like to congratulate these 3 very worthy recipients of this award. Very high marks have been set in this first induction class. Fredericktown can take pride in knowing that the schools provided the foundation that these individuals pushed themselves to build upon. I believe that being a Freddy means more than just being from Fredericktown or graduating from Fredericktown High School. Being a Freddy means that you have a sense of community, a responsibility to do your best and achieve high goals. These 3 individuals have and continue to be exemplary examples of this. All 3 have set very lofty standards of what it takes to be a Freddy. They are all fine examples of the type of people that make me proud to tell coworkers and acquaintances about the Fredericktown community and the schools. Once again, I would like to congratulate each of them for being outstanding in their respective areas, and I want to challenge each of you to strive for distinction and honor throughout your life. Thank you. Now I would like to introduce Mr. Mickey Tucker.
certainly a great privilege to be here today. I'm going to share with you a little bit about Julie. Some of you knew her, some of you never knew. But on behalf of our family and Julie's friends, several are here, I'd like to thank the selection committee for honoring Julie, and thank Mr. Peterson and the board for making this recognition possible. Our parents had a greenhouse and flower shop in Fredericktown for many years, and we grew up in the house beside the car wash on South Main Street. Julie got polio in 1955 at the age of 15. She spent 1 year in Children's Hospital in Columbus in a full-body iron lung. And the polio left her paralyzed from the waist down, which left her paraplegic. She returned to Fredericktown High School her junior year and graduated as vice president of her senior class in '59. And two of her high school friends, Dave White and Denny Morris, who lived over on Eversole Avenue, took her to school every day in her wheelchair. And that was amazing to watch growing up. So after high school, the question became, what future does an 18-year-old young lady in a wheelchair have in Fredericktown? So Julie had some decisions to make about her life. She did a year of internship at the Old Mercy Hospital in Mount Vernon, learning medical transcription. And even though she excelled in that program at no pay, she was told the job would not work out for her because of the wheelchair. So that was rather devastating for her, but it didn't stop her. 1963, she enrolled at the Ohio State University campus in Mansfield, which was a 2-year school at the time. And she could not drive at that time, but fortunately, there were ladies like Joyce Gia, Marilyn Stout, Barbara Flood, and Kate Brown that played a critical role in her transportation needs at that time. They took her to class with them. Julie decided she wanted to be a speech therapist. So in 1966, in September of that year, she had an appointment to meet with a speech therapist to determine what her choices would be at Dodd Hall, which is the rehabilitation center at the Ohio State University Medical Center. However, the speech therapist did not show up to the meeting. But she sent Julie a letter full of all the negative reasons why she should not go to Ohio State. She was in a wheelchair. One of her classes would be on the 3rd floor in Derby Hall. There was no elevator, and that class would never be moved. So that was a lot of reason for her not to go to Ohio State. However, in 1968, she enrolled at Ohio State at the main campus. She got an apartment at Lane and Neal Avenue, and the question became how to get to class. Well, Kay George, a former Fredericktown resident and a student at Ohio State at that time, recruited a Delta Chi man to take her to class. And these men took her to every one of her classes and carried her in her wheelchair up and down the 97 steps in Derby Hall to that class where she wasn't supposed to go. And I've met some of these men, and the stories they have are amazing. She worked at Dodd Hall for 23 years, where she provided therapies for stroke patients. She also did research in rehab therapy and brainstem injuries. And Julie saw students that were failing and quitting school, but it seemed like no one was paying attention to why this was happening except Julie. These students had dyslexia or a learning disability, so this became her focus. She initiated testing and tutoring these students along with her responsibilities at Dodd Hall, and she also tested students in her home. Then she would go to each student's professor and present their case that this student cannot do written tests well but could do oral testing. Or this student needs extra time to do written tests. And needless to say, this was not a very popular idea at the time with the faculty. And then she brought the students tape recorders to take the class. And she was told she couldn't do that, but she did it anyway. So students started taking recorders to class, which got them further in their schooling, and they were able to graduate. Some of these students became lawyers, ministers, priests. Others became very successful, but most of all, they became difference makers in our communities. She led the way to redirect the dyslexic program at Ohio State, and it has been written that she set the blueprint to advance the dyslexic program not only at Ohio State, but also for other programs in the nation. One day, Ohio State football coach Woody Hayes called her. He said, "I have a football player that can't read." Then Elvin Miller, the basketball coach, called her and said, I have a star player that's failing. And they were. Her involvement initiated a student-athlete testing and studies program at Ohio State. She was a guest speaker at the 1972 senior class banquet, and she was a dominant force to challenge the senior class to raise funds for a barrier-free campus. At that time, only 3 or 4 buildings on Ohio State campus were accessible by wheelchair. And if a student could get into the building, the restrooms were not accessible to that person. A person in a wheelchair could not access the main library on campus, the old student union, which was replaced by a building recently, or the faculty club. But with the money they raised and the grant money they received, they raised over $300,000. That money lowered payphones, drinking fountains, sinks, towel dispensers, elevator buttons. They installed lighter and wider doors in some of the buildings over time. And they were able to purchase 2 medical transport vans, which they never had before. But the other major projects with that money were to build 150 curb cutouts on campus. That's what curb cutouts actually started as a Ohio State campus. Ramps into 43 buildings, modified 28 elevators, and of course they put an elevator in every hall. The first ramp was built in front of Haggerty Hall. And they came to Julie with the plans and said, we're going to build this ramp, and what do you think? She said it would never work, it's too steep. Now what do you think they did? They built it anyway, out of all concrete. It had to be torn down and rebuilt. And I remember that day very clearly. April 1974, Julie drove the first task force at Ohio State to meet with President Erickson to address the disability issues on campus. Now, our nation recognizes Disability Month in October, but Ohio State recognizes Disability Month in April 2005. I attended an event for Recreation Unlimited, a fundraising event, which was founded in 1958 by the most colorful and respected sports reporter in Central Ohio, Jimmy Brunton. Jimmy and Julie had a lifelong friendships that started in 1955. And it was at this event that I met Elmer Ballmer. He had retired from Ohio State as Vice President of Academic Affairs, and also had been Provost of the Graduate School at Ohio State. And Mr. Ballmer said, why are you here? I saw I have a picture here taken in the early 70s, so I want to show Jimmy that he had never seen. It was a picture of Jimmy and Julie and Fred Taylor, the basketball coach, from 1950 to 1976. Mr. Ballmer looked at the picture and he immediately said, well, that's Julie. He said, who are you? well, I'm Joe's brother. Well, it took him a few minutes to get his composure back. He said, let me tell you about Joy. In the next 45 minutes, it was one story after another that he shared with me. The impact she had at Ohio State. But one story stands out. He said she called my office one day in the early 70s and told me how Ohio State was ignoring the students that were dyslexic and had a learning disability. He said she was going on and on, and he decided to stop. He said, why don't you come to our next board meeting and tell us what you think? He said, I hung up the phone, that was somebody just wanted to complain, but he didn't use the word complain. And then he said, I thought, what did I get myself into? And then he really laughed about that. She came to our next board meeting and gave us that. He didn't use the word that. She had a list. She went through the list in detail of the problems we had at Ohio State. When she was done, she put the list on the table and left. He said, we all looked at each other and said, she's right. We have a problem and we need to change. And we adopted every one of her suggestions. Then Mr. Bowman did something very striking to me. He said she alone changed the admission policy at Ohio State. In 1972, she was the first Miss Wheelchair Ohio, and that program developed into Miss Wheelchair America. Every year, the Ohio State Department of Education and Human Ecology presents 2 awards of distinction to former alumni. And to date, there have been approximately 68,000 students graduate from the Department of Education. In May 2011, they made an exception and made Joy the 3rd recipient of that award. And this is how Joy saw her life. I'm not handicapped, but I'm handicapable. And this would be her challenge to you. The delegate comment gave their time to make a difference in her life. You be a difference maker not only in your life, but in the lives of others. Never look to see if your glass is half full or half empty. Just make sure it's always full. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. It'll be my pleasure to introduce to you Judge John Fisher, and certainly a big welcome to our senior class. Before I bring Mr. Fisher up here, Judge Fisher up here, I'm going to reflect a little bit on the fact that he graduated in 1964. I graduated 14 years before that, in 1950. A lot of things have changed, certainly in the last 63 years for me. But one thing has remained consistent as far as I can determine, and that is the quality of education that is available in the Fredericktown local school district, for which I think the powers that be should have a hand, should deserve a hand now. That has continued to be an excellent educational process here in Fredericktown. So let's give it. As you will hear, John has certainly earned this recognition and proves the quality of education available here at our beloved school. It also proves that with desire, passion, and hard work, much can be accomplished. I'm still in awe that a kid from outside Batemantown, I'm a kid from outside Batemantown, that went to Harvard Law School. That's still amazing. I just think that's so wonderful that that can happen for somebody from Fredericktown. I remember riding my bike over to Palmyra to my best friend Bill Beagle as a kid, and it was incomprehensible to ride all the way to Batemantown. Things have changed. It's just marvelous to be back. And I refer to my 63 years ago because a small percentage of our class went to school, but there were some significant ones. 2 became medical doctors. One served here in Fredericktown for a while, ended up practicing in California. The second was a girl who became a medical doctor. That was quite unusual back in the 50s, I can assure you of that. We had one of our classmates had his doctorate in education, was the head of the physical education department at the University of Utah. We had another dean geologist. I had the privilege of being coached by a guy named Woody Hayes, whose 100th birthday would have been yesterday. That was a marvelous experience for me. One of the things he always said was pay forward, which I fully understand. I think St. Francis of Assisi put it another way, it's in giving that you receive. Woody on the field was an interesting spectacle. He used Geist Thunder an awful lot. One of my favorite experiences with him that I remember one afternoon of practice, he got really upset. The ground was frozen, and he had a habit of taking his hat and stomping it on the ground, his cap. So he did that, and that wasn't enough. He got down on his hands and knees and started pounding the frozen turf. I was sure he would have broken his arm all the way up his elbow. But that was a real privilege to be a part of. And I got that privilege as being a part of this local school. Judge Fisher. I had not met Judge Fisher until this morning, but to read your resume, you certainly are qualified for this distinguished honor. And I'm delighted that this program has begun here in Fredericktown. As I said, he lived outside of Batemantown, received his AD degree in magna cum laude from Harvard College, then served in the U.S. Army, including in South Vietnam, and then received his AD degree from Harvard Law School. Still impressive figure. I think that's really cool. I like that. I guess the public speaking wasn't my strongest accomplishment. Anyway, after college and after graduating from law school, he served in the state of Ohio in several positions. Was in law practice in Columbus and then on to Washington, D.C., where he held this appointment to, well, he was served in many ways, including his appointment to the Court of Appeals by President George W. Bush in 2005, and still is active in the government. Judge Fisher and his wife Margaret had 2 children, Clark and Madame, I'm sorry. Madame? All right, okay. And Judge Fisher is a distinguished student. In the midst of a distinguished career and a shining example of our great land of opportunity. I have come to understand that for me at least, my happiness is all wrapped up in a feeling of value. That can be a lot of different ways, and certainly in your chosen profession, in your personal lives, in your marriage, your parent, grandparent. I'm privileged to be a great grandparent too. The feeling of value is the ultimate answer for me. And I'm sure that you students will have that opportunity as you progress beyond your graduation here, and I certainly wish you all the best. With that, I'm going to bring John up, and the Honorable John Fisher to receive a plaque. Okay?
Thank you, Mr. Bechtel, and good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. I think probably the first thing I ought to do is say a few words in defense of Fredericktown. It's actually not that bad a place. I'm very flattered by being chosen for this award. I thank you to the committee. I am humbled and grateful for the award, and I'm frankly more than a little bit embarrassed to be singled out in this way from so many distinguished graduates of Fredericktown High School. Compared to the courage and perseverance that Julie Cochran displayed, I have no business being up here. But I am very grateful for the award. I'm proud to be a Freddie, and I'm glad to be back here at Fredericktown High School. Although, to be truthful, I've never been in this Fredericktown High School before today. I'm a member of the class of 1964. We were the last class to graduate from the old high school over on Taylor Street. To you seniors, what a wonderful building you have here. I got a tour earlier this morning. I would love to show you the contrast between this building and the building on Taylor Street, but that building isn't there anymore. So I can't show you that difference. I agree, though, with Mr. Bechtel that no matter where Fredericktown High School is located, many things stay the same in terms of the spirit, the quality, and the values that are instilled in people here. One of the things I was reflecting on as Margaret and I drove here from Washington, D.C. yesterday is how when we were going through high school, at least until about the end of it, it seems to me that life was a lot simpler. In the fall of our senior year, John Kennedy was assassinated. Soon after we graduated from high school, the American involvement in Vietnam became much more intense. That affected all of us in one way or another. In 1968, Robert Kennedy was killed. In 1968, Martin Luther King Jr. was killed. And then, of course, in 2001, we had the attack at one of the World Trade Centers and the Pentagon and the plane that crashed in Pennsylvania. That was a much simpler time from my perspective now. I also was thinking as we drove here today, looking back on the way I've spent the years since 1964, are there any themes that people might draw from what I've done? One theme is that I've worked very hard. I've always tried to do my best, to do a little better, to achieve a little more, to contribute a little more. And people who saw that might think that I'm dissatisfied with what I have. But I want to assure you that that is not true, because one of the things I have tried very hard to do is to always remember what I have and to be grateful for what I have had. One of the things for which I am the very most grateful is that I am a graduate of Fredericktown High School. I appreciate my classmates who are here. Nicky Cochran, his wife Margaret Robinson Cochran, Ellen Cochran Litt, Cheryl Davis and her husband Dean. I don't see well these days, so if there's anybody else I overlooked, I apologize. I value my classmates. I value the friends that I grew up with at Palmyra Church of Christ, many of whom are here today. My good buddy Ralph Greer and his mother Pauline, his sister Judy, her husband Don. I value Chet Leedy, who's turned 100 years old not long ago. Eileen Strader, Carolyn Strader, Carol Strader. They're the family of my good buddy Jack, who's out in LA today. Jeanette McDonald. Members of the Robinson family who live not far from us. One of the things for which I am also most grateful is my wife, Margaret. Why in the world she married me, I don't know. It's an even harder question why she stuck with me all these years. But I'm grateful for that. And one of the things that I'm the most grateful for is the values that I learned growing up on a little farm not far from Batemantown, going to school here in Fredericktown, attending church at Palmyra, and getting my feet under myself in Knox County, Ohio. And I'd like to speak especially at this moment to the members of the senior class who are here. You may not yet appreciate what a great opportunity you have for being students at Fredericktown High School. I am confident that as the years go by, you will appreciate that more and more. And I hope that you are learning the same values today that I have learned over the years starting here. To work hard every day, to do the best you can, always, to be a good neighbor, to live within your means, to be kind to others, not to pull attention to yourself, and to lend a helping hand when you can. Those are not values that I learned in a classroom or through didactic teaching. People that I grew up with showed me those values. They demonstrated them to me. I learned them from watching the Straters and the Greers and the Leedys. I learned them from watching my parents struggle to support and raise young children. I learned them from my neighbors who were kind and helpful and always hardworking. And I hope you are learning those values too. The value of kindness to others is one of the most important things you can take away from Fredericktown High School. Another thing that I learned and still cherish is love of country. And I hope that you are learning that too. Sometimes when I go, I spent most of my career in the criminal justice system, much of it as a prosecutor. You can't spend your life that way without seeing the ugly side of humankind. In order to survive, you have to develop a fairly tough skin. And I sometimes think of myself as a pretty tough guy. But I'll tell you one thing that is guaranteed to bring a tear to my eye and a lump to my throat is when Ralph and Jack and I go to bluegrass music festivals and they ask us to stand up as they play Lee Greenwood's song, God Bless the USA. That brings a tear to my eye. I told you that I value kindness, so I'm not going to try to sing God Bless the USA. But I do want to borrow a line from that song. I'm proud to be an American. I'm proud to be a Freddie. God bless the USA. And God bless each and every one of you. Thank you very much.
I too welcome all of you. Is it on? I too welcome all of you today. It's really good to see so many of you, and especially the seniors. I had the privilege of having Weston Miller in class, and I remember him as being courteous, friendly, respectful, always smiling, very nice. Perhaps that is why he has a plaque on his desk that reads, "Because nice matters." Wes struggled in school and had average to low grades. One teacher even told him that he was not college material. Now this honoree is much like some of you today, average to low grades. But Wes is an example that you do not have to be average if you do not want to be. Wes had to start his freshman year at the Mansfield campus at The Ohio State University because of his grades. At the end of the first quarter, he was on the dean's list, an honor he would achieve during every quarter at his time at Ohio State University. He graduated summa cum laude with distinction. West was accepted to the University of Texas School of Law, and upon completion of his degree, he was awarded a scholarship to study at Queen Mary University in London, England. He was chosen to represent Queen Mary in Austria as the only American in an international moot court competition against law schools throughout Europe, He completed his Master's of Law with distinction at Queen Mary, and he continues to serve his country as a JAG officer in the Air Force Reserves with the rank of Major. You can read more of his accomplishments in the program or the papers that have been distributed, but how he got where he is today is just as important, if not more so, than what he has accomplished. I have a couple of stories to share with you about Wes's younger days. When Wes was getting on the school bus for the first time, the bus driver told him, "You are never to leave your seat or get off the bus until I tell you." So one day the bus came by, stopped, then drove off. Wes was nowhere to be found. His entire family was frantic, wondering what had happened to him since he never came home from school. They went to the school to check on him, and there he was, still in his seat on the bus. But the bus driver never told me to get off, he said. When he was in first grade, discipline was meted out by having students stand in front of the class against the wall. Weeks passed, and one day Wes came home from school very upset, and he told his mom, "I don't understand it. I've been good, and the teacher won't pick me to stand in front of the class." Wes is an example to you students at Fredericktown High School and others who have been surrounded by that hard work and long hours do pay off. That even though you may not be at the top of your class, you can accomplish much and excel in life. You too can be honored someday in the Distinguished Alumni Hall of Honor. You do not have to be the valedictorian or the salutatorian. Many famous people have struggled to succeed in life, and I've selected just a few of them to share with you. There's Harlan David Sanders, perhaps better known as Colonel Sanders of Kentucky Fried Chicken fame. Sanders had a hard time selling his chicken at first. In fact, his famous secret chicken recipe was rejected 1,009 times before a restaurant accepted it. There's Thomas Edison. In his early years, teacher told Edison he was too stupid to learn anything. Work was no better, as he was fired from his first 2 jobs after not being productive enough. And even as an inventor, Edison made 1,000 unsuccessful attempts at inventing the light bulb. And there's Winston Churchill, this Nobel Prize-winning, twice-elected Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, wasn't always as well regarded as he is today. Churchill struggled in school and failed the 6th grade. After school, he faced many years of political failures as he was defeated in every election for public office until he finally became the Prime Minister at the old age of 62. There's Elvis Presley. As one of the best-selling artists of all time, Elvis has become a household name even years after his death. But back in 1954, Elvis was still a nobody, and Jimmy Denny, manager of the Grand Ole Opry, fired Elvis Presley after just one performance, telling him, "You ain't going nowhere, son. You ought to go back to driving a truck." And then there's Michael Jordan. Most people wouldn't believe that a man often lauded as the best basketball player of all time was actually cut from his high school basketball team. Luckily, Jordan didn't let this setback stop him from playing the game, and he has stated, "I have missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I have lost almost 300 games. On 26 occasions, I have been trusted to take the game-winning shot, and I missed. I have failed over and over and over again in my life, and that is why I succeed." Paper must stick together, excuse me. Or, as Richard Bach said, you are never given a dream without also being given the power to make it true. You may have to work for it, however, just like Weston Miller did. And finally, to those of you in attendance today, a quote from Henry Ford: "The man who thinks he can and the man who thinks he can't are both right. Which one are you?" We already know which one Weston Miller is. Come on up, Weston Miller, class of 1996. Congrats. You made all of us in Fredericktown proud of you.
You gotta be careful with the placement of the water bottle on the news. I will sit down here as long as there's no meeting here before you reach it. where to go from a speech that mentioned me in the same breath as Thomas Edison and Colonel Sanders. I shall do my best. First of all, I just want to say thank you to Sonia Overholt. I don't have my glasses on, so I can't see if she's in here, but she really did the legwork to put this together and really honcho making this happen, which was especially difficult because it's the first time anything like this has ever been done. So I would applaud her, and I would like to say, Mr. Peterson, thank you for the idea of this Hall of Honor. I think this is a wonderful thing for the school. Although I do need to speak with you afterward about putting me as the last speaker behind Julie Overholt and Judge Fisher. And I would also like to thank the Honor Society for taking us around on the tour this morning. That was great. In some ways, I would say it's my story is a little bit ironic. I've always had low self-confidence, and I struggled mightily throughout school, throughout my time here at Fredericktown, to create an identity for myself that was anything but Fredericktown. And I guess the irony is that now that I don't live here anymore, this town, this community, many of you, particularly in the faculty and administration, really define who I am, my qualities, my sense of community. I need to check with Jackie Allen to make sure my use of the word irony was correct. So hopefully I got that right. I agree completely with Judge Fisher's comment that coming from this small town really does present an advantage. I can tell you that in my years of service to the federal government, being from a small town is unique. I work in Lower Manhattan now, where people consider anything west of Philadelphia a small town. So there are certain values, there are certain qualities that one places on someone who's considered to be from a small town. So I take great pride in that. I think the reason that I was chosen for this award was because my modest accomplishments were probably not anticipated by most people who knew me. In high school, I was, as Betty Weller said, an average to lower grade student. I scored a 19 on my ACTs. I didn't even consider myself worthy to take the SATs because I considered it to be beyond my abilities. I'd like to stand up here today and tell the seniors that if you work hard, everything that you want will happen, but that's not always true. While no doubt hard work is imperative to any goal that you care about or that you pursue, sometimes life deals you a hand that you didn't anticipate. And I think that for me, and I guess if there's one thing that I could pass on to you, is that just remain flexible. Anticipate that life isn't going to give you what you always want. A lot of times you'll be presented with situations, whether it's relationships, whether it's jobs, that you're not sure you really want. But the important thing is to stick with it and show people your character. Because more important than winning or losing on any particular situation is demonstrating to your family, to those around you, that you have the courage to persevere. For me, personally, I'm very humbled by this honor. I am, to even be mentioned in the same conversation as Julie Cochran is incredible for me. But this award, at least from my perspective, is as much about the school and the community and particularly the faculty who have been a part of my story. For many of you, I wish I could have been a better student for you. I wish I would have worked harder. And so with that, I have a short piece that I'd like to read today from a dear friend of mine who wasn't able to attend Ray Richardson. I guess before I get in to just acknowledge a few people, I want to say this. If I don't say it today, it might not be said. Days from now could be filled with regret that I let this opportunity pass. The words I wanted to say have escaped me. The privilege of expressing my gratitude gone forever. I believe in a season for all things. Conditions change, circumstances create barriers, whether it's the distance or complexity of our journey. Although my words feel inadequate to express how much I appreciate you, I want to say thank you for touching my life. The memories that live in the inside of me I will cherish for days to come. I don't ever want to look back with regret that I didn't tell you that you are all special people who have given so much to myself and to others. So with that, I would just like to go and acknowledge a few people in attendance today. First, Betty Weller. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. And thank you for teaching me how to type. A lawyer's words are his weapons. And I probably spend 8 to 12 hours a day on a computer typing. And I frequently think of what a basic skill that has been for me through the years. And you really taught me how to crawl, I guess, before I could get up and run with my writing. So one thing I never take for granted, Mr. Ward. I very much appreciate that skill set that you taught me. To Bob Moore, I'd like to thank you, first of all, for letting me pass your math class. As a teacher, Mr. Moore was my math teacher. But more importantly, I want to thank you for your patience with me, for treating me like a man, for treating me with respect, for always listening to me. I very much appreciate that. Thank you. To Tony DeHulius, I saw him earlier today, I think he's here. I want to thank you for your leadership. I want to thank you for your courage and your decision making. My class was not easy. I really don't, you didn't pay you enough for doing what you had to do with my class, so I very much look back on that, and I think that you were one of those rare leaders in teaching who can set the standard, be the disciplinarian when necessary, but also to look at the bigger interests, in particular what's in the students' best long-term interests. I appreciate having had you as my principal. Although I do want to speak with you maybe after this about whether it might be possible to repeal some of those detentions that I received consistently, I think, from Mrs. Stout's French class. I think now I'm probably more capable to articulate an argument about how those were unjust. Maybe we can speak about that. Don DeMarco. I never actually had Don DeMarco for a teacher, and I never played sports with him either. But he has been, I think, for this community, one person that I've looked at as really a pillar of this community. I think of football Friday nights, and I don't know that I'd ever come back to Fredericktown during the fall and not try to go to a football game and get out there and see it. I realize there's new coaches out there now, but to me, Don DeMarco was an example of character and integrity, and was just a fine example of a man for the young men and women passing through this school. And I can't thank him enough for the example he's been. And he's one of those personalities that will always be larger than life for me. And even though I never took a class with him. I'd like to thank Mrs. Allen for really probably introducing me, challenging me, my critical thinking, and writing. I remember receiving papers back from her that looked like someone bled on them. There was so much red ink and markups. But she really, I think she probably triggered in me a passion for critical thinking and analysis. I think that more than being a good lawyer, probably I'm good at deducing and logic and just common sense points. And I think that you taught me that, how to be able to write in a way that makes sense to people, to all audiences, and not to write in such a way that nobody can understand. I appreciate it very much. Dean Gould, who actually my wife requested that you be here because we have a lot of leaves in our house. And I had the great idea that I'm going to do a compost pile at our house. And I'm not sure what's going wrong, but there's a terrible stench from that compost pile, and I'm not really sure what to do about it. So my wife asked if you could be here to help me out with that a little bit. I don't know if you could spray it with something. To Ken Conway, I'd like to thank you for introducing me to ideas that I didn't really appreciate when you told me about it, and the different topics that we studied in history. I didn't appreciate them now, but now when I read history, a lot of the stuff that you told me and you said and the different points of view that you presented to me really come home. It's almost like, sometimes I hear you talking to me when I'm reading a history book about some of the things that I read about. So I very much appreciate that. To Jack Stetson, I was always scared of Jack Stetson in junior high. He was arguably the most intimidating teacher I ever had. But Jack Stetson touched my heart by his willingness to share his personal story that I still think about often. And I believe at heart Mr. Stetson is a big teddy bear, even though on the outside sometimes he can be strict. I probably would say he was strict. To Candy Gallagher, who I had her in 4th grade, so of everyone I'm mentioning today, I don't know if there's anybody that dates as long as she does in terms of my coming through the school system. I think the thing about Mrs. Gallagher, though, that the reason she's been, I would say, my favorite, I'll go ahead and use a superlative in describing her as the best teacher that I ever had, which I've always done. And the reason is not because of any particular thing she taught me, but the nurturing, caring, fun environment that she created in the classroom that I always appreciated, and it always made me feel good about going to school. You were the person who really showed me, the first person to show me what an environment for education should be. And especially at that young age, as I said, I always struggled with self-confidence, but you were instrumental, I would say, in my development. And I thank you very much, Mr. Bell. I'd also like to acknowledge some people, family and community, briefly. Earl, who I'm very pleased is here. I spent a lot of summers in high school sweeping chimneys with Earl Rule, and I gotta say, I'm not sure I've ever met anybody with better character or integrity than you, particularly in dealing with customers, and you and your work ethic were just inspiring, and I can't tell you how often I reflect with fond memories on those days of you and I driving around in the service truck cleaning up chimneys, which is a great story to tell too, for other in the cities and things that I used to be a chimney sweep, which in England is good luck, so that was a really good story to tell. It might even be how one my wife I'd like to thank Max and Kathleen Schonauer for being here and for always being supportive of me and Max is another one of those pillars of this community in particular that I can't really say enough about. Your contributions to this community, to me personally, to your family, has been wonderful. And I very much appreciate all you've done for me and all your support of me through the years. My sisters, you guys are the reason I still consider, a large part of the reason I still consider Fredericktown home. You're the reason that I keep coming home. You are my confidants. There's nothing I can't talk to you about. You're my best friends, and I am eternally grateful for having you in my life. Thank you. Okay, and lastly, I'd like to thank my parents who, they've got a story, a brief story that I'd like to tell. There kind of goes along with the perseverance and determination and life always not giving you the situations that you would have hoped for. My parents have suffered a lot of tragedy in their life. Both of them lost their spouses in tragic car accidents. My mom lost her husband in 1961. My dad lost his wife also in 1961. My mom, in that same car accident, also lost her 3-year-old baby son, Brent, who would have gone through the school system, but I never got to meet because I wasn't born until 1977. And my dad lost his oldest son, Jack, in 1972. He was 17 years old, so he was just finishing up his high school. So the tragedy that they've had to endure has been inspiring for me. Reflecting on their story has given me strength to deal with the challenges in my life that would never ever compare to what you all have had to endure. And I think one thing that I notice when I speak to Mom and Dad about Brent and Jack is a longing and a yearning that their memory will not be forgotten. And so I would just like to let you know that that has been a very big part of me, their story, their tragic deaths, and the way you all have persevered and handled that through the years has really made me into the person I am today. Any strength that I've been able to demonstrate, your own situation has always been something that I've reflected. So for whatever it's worth, I'd like to donate, I'd like to dedicate this honor that I'm receiving today to Brent and Jack's memory. So to conclude, thank you all very much. Best of luck to the seniors, and I just wish you all the best of luck. And continue to cherish those around you. I guess that would be the point I would leave. Make sure you take time to just thank the people that have been close to you, your family and your friends, because it's amazing how fast life goes by. It's been 17 years since I graduated, and I don't know that I've ever had an opportunity to address the teachers and the faculty and to thank them in the way that I have today. So take an opportunity to do that because those kinds of things go a long way. You'll find as you go through life that it's the personal things that mean most, the unexpected personal things when somebody comes up and says, you know what, I really appreciate you doing that, I really appreciate you taking the time to do something. It's those kinds of interactions that really mean a lot. So with that said, thank you.
Thank you, Wes. And once again, congratulations to all of our inductees. I certainly believe that they are proof that our Fredericktown graduates entering life in the world can accomplish great things. It has certainly been a pleasure having you join us today with your family and friends. The plaques that you see in front of the podium, they will be displayed forever on our Distinguished Alumni Hall of Fame wall. And I know Mr. Moore, our middle and high school principal, Mrs. Bunsen, our elementary principal, we're in the process of determining which wall we want that to be, these plaques to be displayed on. We also want this to be a continuing program because we have many more graduates that certainly are well deserving of the same honor. I thank you so much for being here today. I congratulate you for all of your accomplishments and the words that you shared with all of us this morning. Those of you that are staying for lunch, we will exit this door to my right and we will go down into the library. I will ask our lovely NHS students to escort you to the library. Senior class, Mr. Moore, where would you like for them to go after this? Fifth period, you will return to your fifth period class. Again, folks, I can't thank you enough. This certainly is one of the proudest days for Jim Peterson in my 40 years here. I thank you so much, and I congratulate you once again. Let's give our inductees one more round of applause.